Charlie, the floor is yours, so go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Excited to be here with everyone. Have actually been talking about trying to do something like this for about 3 years. Rick Smith from the Norman office and John DeBlock from the Birmingham office and I all had exchanged ideas that we should have a Google Meet or webinar series to share stories of our damage assessments and share things we learn when we're out doing damage surveys as WCMs or as forecasters, MICs or SUs. Those of us that have been out on surveys all have some pretty unique experiences and stories to share, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So the hope is that this will become a new opportunity from start of the month, and thanks for WDTD for hosting this, and that we make kind of its own series called Survey of the Month. And this would be the first of many Survey of the Month experiences that people share. So things we've talked about that could be shared in this include just unique damage indicators you come across when you're surveying, or how you interpret the degree of damage. If for EF3 plus, if you're debating 4 or 5, you went through that process with a quick response team, what you went through with that process, how that determination was made, getting that expert insight from wind engineers, different interactions with survivors. There's all kinds of interesting stories that can be told, and expanding it out to tropical surveys after landfalling hurricane and flood surveys, best practices, lessons learned, which I'll be going through a lot of today, and then also all the data sharing, different satellite radar usage of the damage assessment toolkit. There are so many different things related to surveying that we can share through our experiences out surveying. I was the Warning Coordination Meteorologist for the Shreveport office from 2018 through 2023 for almost 5 years. The Shreveport office covers southwestern Arkansas, one county in southeastern Oklahoma, East Texas, and northwest Louisiana. So a very active area for severe weather in the deep south. This picture, I think, kind of puts many of my experiences in a nutshell of the things I encountered in 5 years. This was an EF3 tornado in Alto, Texas. Alto actually got hit by 2 tornadoes within a couple of hours in April on the same day in this event. But this EF3 did lots of damage and knocked down walls of homes with just exterior rooms standing, knocked an entire home off its foundation. That didn't have the best anchoring, but anyway, we ended up going with an EF3 with this one. It just shows kind of some of the traumatic, I think this is a good capture of some of the traumatic things you see when you're out surveying. And a lot of times as a warning coordination meteorologist and those of us that go out and survey, I think we can kind of just compartmentalize, and you're seeing a lot of really sad things, traumatic things, people's lives torn apart, but we're able to compartmentalize and do our job and get the good work done, to get a survey done and collect all the information without getting too caught up emotionally in it. But that's more easily said than done. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today and ways to help you out through my experience. So some different things I'm going to talk about today: leveraging IWTs, health and wellness, dealing with a missed tornado in a high population area, lots of media, and making decisions on whether to survey or not to survey. So I wanted to kick this off just with and put an emphasis on the importance of things that you can do right now. Right now, at your weather forecast office, for those of you that are in WFOs, you can be building relationships to help make your survey process more efficient and easier when the time comes that you're going to go out and do surveys. And this can best be done through integrated warning team workshops and media workshops and presenting on the process. During these workshops, taking the time in the agenda to just carve out a period where somebody from your office is presenting on how we do damage surveys, what the process is, how we make decisions on whether it's straight line wind damage, downburst, tornado damage, laying that all out and explaining it to our partners so they understand that, and they also can understand how they can help us. So taking pictures, what's a good picture to send the office if you think you have tornado damage? What are you looking for? Some emergency managers that just haven't been trained will see trees down and think, oh, it was a tornado, right? And so we can't make assumptions that our emergency managers or even media contacts know what tornado damage looks like versus downburst or straight line wind damage. So this is an education process to help them understand that, help them understand how we use the damage assessment toolkit, and ultimately how we can work together, how they can send us pictures in advance of damage, help us find locations, go out, take pictures for us, and ultimately save us time in some cases where maybe it was reported by someone as tornado damage, and really it ended up being downburst or straight line wind damage, or just some trees down that didn't even need to be surveyed to begin with. So IWTs and media workshops are a great way to build that relationship. At the Shreveport office, one of our forecasters, Matt Hemingway, who's a lead at the office, led our integrated warning team workshop in March of 2021. And it ended up being a virtual workshop because of COVID-19, but he was able to talk to our partners and ask them what they wanted to hear about. And one of the things that came up was data sharing for damage surveys. And so what we ended up doing for a whole session of our IWT, it was a couple of hours, is we had different partner agencies talk about how they gather data through Survey 123 and through different data collection platforms. And so we gave a presentation to talk about the damage assessment toolkit. The American Red Cross showed their GIS interface of how they collect information when they and made it clear that they go out and they look at every home and not just what our mission is, right? Trying to find the worst damage, trying to find path width, path length, all these specific things. It was an opportunity for us to educate them on that as well. And then TDEM as well for East Texas was going out and doing damage surveys as well, and had information that they could share with us, and then we could ultimately plot that in the damage assessment toolkit as well to help fill gaps for long track tornadoes. Along with working with the Texas Department of Public Safety, the IWT brought us all together so we knew who the contacts were, and so we could share information and ultimately help us out with locations we couldn't get to. So often you'll go out and survey the first day or the second day after the event, and trees are down and you just can't get there, and maybe an aerial survey is not an option. But then you have the Red Cross or TDEM or another agency coming through with emergency management that's documenting this in the days after. And so that's a good opportunity to help fill the gaps and not have to drive out there multiple times, because during these outbreaks, sometimes we can have 10, 15 different locations that need to be surveyed, 10, 15 different tracks or even more, right? So we want to help make that process as efficient as we can. So the first lesson learned that I wanted to share was from a tornado event where we had a couple of long track supercells move through East Texas from March 21st into March 22nd. You can see the Storm Prediction Center tornado reports there. The two longer tracks are right here in East Texas. You can see right here and right here. I want to share my story of kind of how this went going into it. In the 5 days leading up to this event, I was on vacation, and I still remember my plane landed late afternoon at the Shreveport airport, which is right next to the office. I knew we had a severe weather event with tornadoes coming up that evening. So I stopped into the office on my way home and checked in to see if any help was needed, and recall our lead saying, "We're good on staffing, but we may need to survey tomorrow. Like we're anticipating tornadoes." So that kind of got me in the mindset of, okay, I'm gonna head home now, and then we'll see how things unfold. So we ended up, as I mentioned, having these tornadoes, a couple of long track tornadoes with this event. And one track I wanted to hone in on specifically was this longer track in Northeast Texas that went through Upshur County, Texas, and southeast of Gilmer, Texas. And this one sticks out to me particularly because it was a challenging warning mode for us, because the supercell was going through the tornado warning polygon. It was a well-issued tornado warning with lots of lead time. But as it was getting toward the end of the polygon, there was a tough decision to be made. Are we going to reissue or not? And we waited to like pretty close to the last minute to reissue downstream. Well, then the next people downstream in the next polygon didn't quite get that much lead time. And it was some of the stories that we encountered about people that didn't get much lead time that I'll share here shortly. So our forecaster did a good job kind of giving me a heads up, and the forecaster I surveyed with, Matt Hemingway, we both kind of knew what we were walking into, that there would be some scenarios where people didn't get a whole lot of lead time and maybe didn't get a lot of opportunity to take action. So we start our survey, and just like any other survey, coming across different damage indicators, putting it into, plotting it on our iPad, tracking it with GR Analyst, with our GPS, and following the tornadic debris signature, right? And making it very easy for us, because there's a very well-defined TDS with this, and lots of damage all along the path. I guess what caught me off guard in this event was some of the encounters that we came across with interacting with the public that had been impacted by this EF2 tornado. This picture here is a guest house that was next to a well-built home that was still standing when we saw it. The guest house was not well built. It was pretty much completely destroyed. Walls collapsed, not much left standing in it. And when we talked to the residents in the main house next to it, they said, yeah, our mom was in the guest house. She's in the hospital. She has broken ribs. And had we had more lead time, we would have gotten her and brought her in the house. And then Matt and I were walking back to the car, passing several mobile homes with people that were in the hospital, and hearing stories and interacting with people, several mobile homes destroyed. And I as much as I've been able to compartmentalize in the past, during this specific event, it really hit me hard. Emotionally, I'm like walking back to the car, and I'm like pretty much in tears, and I'm like, this is hitting me different. Why is this hitting me different? And so I thought about this. I've had 3 years to look back and think about this and learn from it. And why did this hit me so much harder than I'd encountered people in the past, where I talked to literally a family member whose parents had just died in a double wide mobile home that had been completely destroyed. And I was able to compartmentalize and do the job and get through it and get it done. Why did this hit me harder? And what I ended up realizing looking back at it was I was tired coming off a trip, didn't get much sleep with the event. I was watching it from home late overnight, keeping tabs on it. So maybe got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I was already low on sleep coming off a flight back and a trip, and tried to make up for it, of course, by drinking caffeine, whether it was, I don't know, that day it was either a Red Bull or a 5-hour energy, whatever it was, right? The energy drink of the day. And all of these things kind of just added together to just really ramp up my anxiety, not being able to think as clearly, and even tapped into some PTSD, past life experiences for me, and made me more vulnerable. So, when we're encountering these type of things, here's the mobile homes that we saw that were completely destroyed. I realized that, I was not 100% on my game for that survey. I was not completely mentally, physically prepared for what we were going to come across that day. And it hit me, and it impacted me, and impacted my work. And I'm sharing this because we're all human. We all work long hours in the events, doing DSS, working the radar, and have surveys many days after these tornado outbreaks where it can really impact us. And so I wanted to share, I reached out a couple weeks, in the weeks after, I was still impacted by it. I was feeling burnout. The big red flag to me on burnout is when you start losing interest in your job that you love. So many of us, including myself, got into the Weather Service just because we love serving the public. We love the job. It's fun coming to work. Like it is so much fun getting to serve the people we care about and help save lives and do this important work. And it's just like our calling. And like I was having days where I didn't feel interested. Like I felt burnout, and like just it became a job and not my passion. And so I knew something was wrong. And so I actually reached out to Valerie Gardner, and it took some, I guess, just brain power to come to the point to do this, because you're in your head, you're thinking, oh, I'm fine. I don't need to do this. I don't need to go to the health and wellness officer. I don't need to reach out to them, but I did. And I was really thankful I did that because walking through Valerie, things with Valerie, explaining to her, we're having all these high impact weather events. It feels relentless. Our MIC's in the hospital. I've been acting MIC with our Sioux trading off. We're getting all these surveys. I just feel really burnt out. And she started asking me these questions about going back to my childhood and events that I had gone through in my life. And it was really interesting to me. She tracked some of the issues that I had that was going on to childhood traumas way beyond all the things I was experiencing, and really helped me out with some mental health things that I didn't even realize were going on, and became a lot more comfortable talking about afterward. So I am a huge advocate for health and wellness ever since I experienced this. It was a big turning point for me reaching out to Valerie. She was a huge help to myself and our office as we were challenged with so many different things, dealing with our meteorologist in charge in the hospital with brain cancer and later passed away with brain cancer. It was a tough period for our office. And I know a lot of people going through challenges in their life, different types of challenges like this. So my best advice coming out of this is don't be afraid to reach out to the health and wellness officer. Cami Cooper is great. Her email address is listed here. She's a great resource that you can use for these type of things. Because we want to be on our game, right? We want to be professionals. We don't want to get caught up in the emotions of these surveys, but it's hard to do that unless you're on top mentally and physically on top of your game. The next event I want to talk about is March 2nd, 2023. This was a pretty well anticipated potential tornado event. We had a moderate risk for a good chunk of our CWA, and with the potential of tornadoes, damaging winds. And I want to walk you through a storm that passed very close to our office into the Shreveport radar. You can see here with the yellow dot right here, this is the radar, which is pretty much co-located with the SHV with the Shreveport office with our WFO that I worked at. And you can see the cell was really not that far away, probably, I think it was about 4 miles away, heading northeast. You can kind of see it's so close to the radar, a little bit of an appendage coming out of it. And I'll just walk us through here. We had a tornado develop at 5:35. You can see it just briefly, a little bit, kind of a weak, like hook echo signature. And here's the first tornado report. This was relayed to us at 5:47. And so this happened at 5:39. You can see the debris being picked up in the tornado. Condensation funnel just about to the ground. Power flash there. Not the most classic hook echo, likely a low top mini supercell, right, that dissipate there at 540. So again, we got this report at 5:47. So about the time we got this video, it had already happened, and then fell apart quickly and dissipated. Taking a look at the velocity, just to kind of round things off here, there's really not, this close to the radar, there was not a strong couplet, not really a strong gate-to-gate signature. We're looking at 15 knots inbound, 18 knots outbound. Nothing really strong that really would show us that the tornado had developed. Nothing that stuck out to our radar operator. I mean, it's 3 or 4 miles from the office. So you would think you would see a stronger signal than that very close to the radar. No tornado warning was issued until we got that video back at 5, right around the time we got the video. At that point, we had the supercell dissipating. So we did have a tornado that happened, obviously, from the video. We already knew that at that point, and no tornado warning issued. So the immediate thought is, we just had a tornado hit Shreveport just a couple miles from our office and we missed it. That's not good, right? But how it's handled is it's really important. So I want to share this experience because we're all human and we're not perfect, and the radar's not perfect. And there are times where just the radar really can't completely detect a narrow, low-topped supercell producing a tornado. So we're getting better and better and better, right? And we're getting more and more data and more better radar updates and better technology. And we want to expand and make our Skywarn network even better, right? With how we're getting reports into Slack. But we're still humans, and things will still happen that will lead to missed tornadoes. That's the reality. That's why we're here, right? That's why we don't have AI or computers issuing tornado warnings for us. There's a human element involved with us saving lives. And so how do you handle that? How do you handle having a missed tornado in your backyard, not that far from the office? And what was really important was that we had developed a really good relationship with all of our media stations in the Shreveport area leading up to this. When I first came into the office as WCM, we had a really good relationship with one station, an okay relationship with another, and not a really close relationship with the third station. And I said, we need to be spending our time with this third station and the middle station, and the other one will come to us. So we really focused on making sure we had a good relationship with all of them. And that really mattered in this event, because instead of the story being the Weather Service missed this tornado, the story instead was why we missed it and why it was so difficult. And it didn't come back to pointing the finger at the Weather Service. It came back to it being a very unique event instead. And so we decided to proactively have a press conference to control the message for this event. And so I'll share that with you here. And that helped us control the message and ultimately control the narrative with the media.
Now, one of the big questions over the last 24 hours, why wasn't there more warning from the National Weather Service about one particular tornado? And that was the question put to the NWS today.
We saw a cell was coming up from DeSoto Parish from the south. We were watching it closely, but what was different about this cell was it wasn't demonstrating strong rotation with it that we would typically issue a tornado warning with. When a storm is this close to our radar, normally we see that rotation very well when a tornado develops. But this was a very low-topped, it's not your typical tall thunderstorm. It was a shorter thunderstorm with weaker rotation and just narrow enough where it just happened to touch down here and didn't come up with a strong signature on our radar.
So that became the story instead of it being Weather Service misses the tornado. It was like, this is a very unique event. And I can still remember one of our media partners calling me and saying, hey, I hate to do this, but we want to know what happened. And you always get this worry when you hear the media say, I hate to do this. But really what it ended up being was like, well, let's have a press conference. We'll come, we'll talk about it, and we'll share with you what we found. And because we'd built a great relationship, the media had our back in the event, and it wasn't a finger pointing media story. It was more of this was a unique event story. One other lesson learned I want to share from this is with the public interactions. Pretty much ground zero, where the incident command bus was set up by Caddo Parish 911 emergency management there, was next to a bank that had been hit by the tornado. And when we got to this site, we started at the beginning of the track and took damage points along the track. When we got to this point, we went to the incident command bus, met with emergency management, met with the emergency responders that were there, police officer and a couple other employees there from the parish. They gave us the information they had, and then we came out and crossed the street and went over to a bank across the street. Walked up to the bank door, trying to get more information about the damage to the bank, and was greeted by an employee of the bank who honestly looked kind of scared and didn't want to open the door and talk to us, and just had kind of a scared look in their eye. And, we were trying to find out, what kind of damage there was to the bank. Could we get surveillance footage from the bank of the tornado as it was coming by? And they weren't very receptive to that. So I left my card with them and I walked away. About a week or two later, I end up finding out that this person was working at the bank a few weeks prior to the tornado hitting, and the bank had been held up at gunpoint. And they had already had an interaction where their life was threatened. Then they had the tornado hit the bank. And so they were frightened by me and really didn't appreciate me coming up to their door like that after a tornado had hit. I had no idea. I wasn't thinking about this. I'd done lots of surveys, walked up to lots of residents and commercial structures without any issue. But looking back at this and understanding that, I understand why they were scared. And I wish I would have brought a police officer with me or some kind of emergency official with me to that bank. So the lesson learned here is be careful. Be careful with your interactions with the public. Be careful with your interactions with commercial locations. You have to remember we're all human again. They've been impacted by something very stressful and traumatic. And there may be other things like the bank being robbed that you don't know about. So when you can go with an emergency manager or go with a police officer to these type of locations, it can help make it a safer scene for you. Also help you get access to things you might not be able to on your survey otherwise. The last piece of this I just want to cover real quickly is something that's really challenging with tornado outbreaks, particularly with QLCS, embedded tornadoes. You get a lot of spin-ups. You can have a lot of short-track tornadoes, is trying to determine where to start, what areas to survey, what's legitimate, what's not legitimate, where do we spend most of our time? We only have 2 or 3 teams available. How are we going to survey all this damage? It's challenging. It's challenging for an office after an outbreak. And you don't always know. You could issue maybe 50 plus tornado warnings, and to try to track down every meso under a tornado warning just really isn't realistic. There's not enough time in the day. So how do you decide where you're going to survey and where to go, and what tornado warning storm, which mesos to survey versus which ones not to survey? Of course, many of the radar operators issued the warning. They're confident there was a tornado. They thought there was a tornado. They want you to survey it. But there's really just not realistically enough time in the hardest severe weather season. You get through a couple of days of surveying and the next event's coming, and now you got to be ready for that with DSS. So to help with this efficiency and to try to really make it more objective for our staff, I developed, with the input of other WCMs and input of our staff, this tornado survey flow chart. And to walk you through this, it ultimately walks you through from the left side, if you had a tornado warning issued or you didn't have a tornado warning issued, to making the decision on the right side. Do we need to survey this damage, or is a survey not needed? So for example, we had a tornado warning issued. There was damage reported. Following the top here, inquire with the EM, try to figure out where to go. If it aligns with the radar, survey it. If the damage appears to be non-tornadic based on EM input and the EM's in agreement, we see pictures, it doesn't look like it's tornadic, no survey. If damage appears to be non-tornadic and it's getting a lot of media attention and there's local officials calling it a tornado, then we do want to survey that. So there's a lot of different scenarios you can walk through this flow chart. Another one would be tornado warning issued, no damage reports, but you have a TDS. Or you look at it several days later and you see on satellite imagery that there's a track. Then go back and survey it, right? Meso loft, no tornadic debris signature, then you wouldn't survey that. So the idea of this is to try to make a very subjective process, deciding where and when and how to survey tornado damage or other types of storm damage, trying to make it more objective and more fair, especially to our warning operators who, obviously work really hard and want to do the best they can to see their tornado warnings verified, and we want to be able to do that for them. So the big thing here is also leveraging emergency managers, getting pictures, getting more information, leveraging the data we have in the office before deciding whether or not we should go out. So a helpful way to make it more objective and less of that subjective sweating over decision whether to survey or not. So just a couple of the main takeaways. It's important to build relationships with the media and emergency management early on to help surveys go more smoothly. These strong partnerships allow for us to work together in our communities and for our communities with the survey process. And there's a lot of stressors you encounter during surveys, so take care of yourself before, during, and after. Leverage proactive press conferences and communication with the media and emergency management when possible to help with a consistent message to the public when a tornado is missed. And lastly, survey decisions are challenging, so leverage the partnerships we have with emergency management and the information available to help make them more objective and efficient when deciding when or when not to survey. And lastly, I had referenced the tornado where I was not impacted and was able to compartmentalize. This was an EF2 tornado that completely destroyed a double wide overnight and killed 2 people that were sleeping in the double wide mobile home. And when I came up to the damage, their daughter was standing outside completely in shock that next morning. And we have to give ourselves grace. Even though you compartmentalize, you tuck these things away, it's not normal for somebody to experience these things once or twice in their life, let alone 10, 15 times in a season. So give yourself grace, give others that survey grace. This is not something normal to experience, regardless of whether you're a Weather Service employee or not. So with that, thanks for everyone's time. This was part one of stories that I have to share from the ArkLaTex. It was hard to narrow it down to just 30 minutes. So I have a part two that hopefully I can share down the line as well with more storm survey stories. And I look forward to hearing a lot of others storm survey stories as well. Thank you.
We'd just like to thank Charlie for today's presentation. As always, we are looking for presenters, so please feel free to reach out to myself or Jessica Bunker if you're interested in presenting something. Thanks for everyone for attending. Our next Storm of the Month will take place January 20th. We're going to move it up to get out of the AMS week. And I believe Charlie's going to do a part two. So I'm looking forward to that. So with all that, thanks for your attendance and your time, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.